welcome back to SuperChat.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Fine. We're off to a good start today. Well, Todd, I was wondering if you could tell our listeners about your communication audit report. What can you share with us today on this?
It's been a long time coming. To be honest, a little disappointed how long it's taken to get all the information. It's been about 10, 11 months now. We wanted the information back in a little faster manner, but the bottom line is we have the information back. The audit was designed to see how we as a school district could improve communication. There are several avenues of communication that never existed before. Obviously, the podcast being one of them, realizing how many people we can reach out to and using a platform like this. But we have to go above and beyond this. And so what they looked at is they looked at several areas. They looked at the superintendent, they looked at the treasurer, parent communication and engagement, personal communication, planning and strategy, looked at all our newsletters, our content, our website, Board of Education, parochial school families, community engagement, printed materials, which do have their places here and there, facilities, media relations, crisis communications, and case studies. So when he looked at this, it always starts at the top, and that would be with myself. And we found out some good information there. Part of the information showed that we have some people who help us with levies. And my first 2 years that I was superintendent, we had to pass 2 levies. Neither levy raised new taxes, but it's a process. And to get a levy to pass, you need community input and involvement. Well, the folks on the levy committees felt like the only time the school district reaches out to them is when we have levies. And you know what? I would agree 100% to that. So one of the recommendations was to start forming a VIP committee, very important people committee. So we have started that process. We are bringing them in. We are setting up strategic meetings with them every quarter so that we can cover the important pillars or the things that keeps the school district running. So our first meeting dealt with financials. On top of that, we also started a superintendent advisory committee. And that's a committee that's going to go more in depth and look deeper into financials, into curriculum, into instruction. Another thing that was found coming from me is that sometimes people don't feel I'm approachable. And I can see that occurring. I go to events and sometimes I sit by myself, and I've got to be more outgoing and try to reach out to people so we can get more communication started there. Don't want to seem unattainable, don't want to seem unapproachable, don't want to be someone who looks like they don't care about what's going on, but someone who can do more to get people involved. Parent communication and engagement, like I said, we dealt with the committees. I am also attending every PTA meeting throughout the district, and we are finding ways to pull in our classified and our certified employees to communicate with them also. The biggest thing that came out of this is there is a desperate need in our school district for a communications director. For a district our size, we are the only district our size in the state of Ohio who does not have a communications director. I think sometimes people tend to forget we do have 2 large high schools. We do have close to 9,000 students, 40,000 plus registered voters, a lot of parents that need ongoing communication. So that is something we'll discuss at the December meeting with the board to see their thoughts and their input on that, and to also provide a bigger description of what we're going on here with the communication audit. And then lastly, they looked at our website, our newsletters we send out. They made lots of recommendations. I think like you and I have talked before, they suggested that the podcast be not always the superintendent, but to invite guests in and to cover all kinds of facets of education, what makes up our school district. So we look forward to going over the report. I'll meet with Pam Detzel, our president, Mark Gilbert, our vice president. We'll go over the report. We'll prioritize what's listed there, and then we'll do a public presentation at the December meeting.
These all sound like positive findings, actually, because until and unless you study these things and quantify them and put them all down and identify them deliberately as a part of a concerted effort, you really don't know the extent to which these things are important. And I really like the idea of expanding. I'm speaking to the podcast content. Yeah, we do many schools where they have administrators, curriculum people, students, teachers, organizers who are working with the schools on as guests with the superintendent, sometimes without the superintendent. So it's a real mix, and I think that variety is a healthy thing, if I might frame it that way, healthy.
Oh, it is. And, you get caught up in your little world, or at least I know myself as a superintendent. I'm in my own little world here, and you're thinking about all this. But we have two big high schools, but we have two very diverse high schools, different things going on at each. And what better place to have the administration or the teachers in those high schools come onto the show and talk about what's going on? And then to be proactive with the social media posts. That was one of the biggest things we looked at. And part of the audit was you have to have somebody to put things out on social media, because that is a place where people can say anything, do anything. You're not held accountable, but there has to be a way for the school district to verify, put out the correct information, and help people learn more about our district.
Agree. Well, let me change directions a little bit here. It's my understanding that Northwest Local has been surveying the community about the possibility of an emergency levy in November of 2019. Explain what's happening with this.
We are trying to go around to all the groups that I've talked about, our VIP group, our SAC group, all the PTAs, talking about what's happened. We've had like the perfect storm. The state has continually taken away state funding for our school district. Tangible personal property tax is one thing, where we used to get tax credits for warehouses that would sit and have stock or volume in these warehouses. Well, that has been taken away. On top of that, there has been a reduction in the amount of money that is coming into the district in several other areas. So it's put us in a place where we are in deficit spending. So we are spending the rest of 2018 and the rest of the spring of 2019 up through June, going around and explaining what's going on with school funding and finances, and explaining to them the place that we are in as a district. And with deficit spending, the first thing that'll come from folks, and I understand this and I appreciate that, is they built the new schools, but they didn't put things in place to run the new schools. And what I can say to that is we have proof that we definitely did put the funding into it, but we could not account for the funding that has been reduced by the state over the last 3 to 4 years. So our presentation will go over that specifically. And what we want to do is gather feedback. What does the community think? And does the community realize that since 2007, the district has not raised any taxes with bond levies, emergency levies, or renewals? Our last two levies we passed, one was a bond for the new school, did not raise taxes whatsoever. That converted a continuing emergency levy into a bond levy. And then a renewal that lasted for 10 years did not raise any new taxes either. So people will say, well, then why are my taxes on my house going up? And the one thing you need to remember is property value is going up. So that's what's raising the taxes. It's not the school district. So to go 11 years without no new taxes, it's time to start looking into it. We are in deficit spending, about $4 to $5 million. And we have to keep an eye on that. And we have to start looking at reductions or the possibility of passing a levy. So that's what we're going to spend our time on.
Okay. And if this does take place in November of 2019, this would be, because of all the state funding cuts, this would be operating funds.
Correct. This would be total operating funds, and it would have to go as an emergency levy first.
Gotcha. Well, Todd, you have an update to your school calendar. Can you give us the details of what specific change has been made?
I just want to make sure that the community is aware, our staff is aware that we are starting next year's development of the calendar. We've actually already started it. We are looking at very similar starting times for the school year. So it'll be that second or third week in August as usual, and then out before Memorial Day. We are trying to look into a consistent pattern where we can say Easter break is this time every year, but state testing, right now, we're still waiting to see for the dates of state testing for next year. It's hard enough to get this year's date, much less next year. So we'll be putting the calendars out, seeking community input. We'll be passing it on to our teachers union and our classified employees for them to give input. And we will continually look to work with folks to put a calendar out there that meets the needs of everyone.
Excellent. Well, Todd, your stakeholders no doubt are listening today with interest. Important information you've shared with us today. And I want to thank you for joining me once again here on SuperChat.
Thanks, Gary. We always look forward to it. And I'm going to start working on those guests so we can have a better podcast every time you call.